Hello there, I'm John Arnette coming at you from the BETDAQ NFL War Room here in Ponte Vedra, Florida. Week 2 is now in the books. Atlanta beating Denver 27-21 last night thanks to 3 first-quarter interceptions from Peyton Manning, which allowed the Falcons to build an early 20-0 lead and just really hold off Denver there in that second half. Denver gained some momentum there in the fourth quarter and actually had a chance to win that game. Atlanta did hold on, though, for that 27-21 victory. But enough of looking back, enough of talking about the Week 2 results. Time to look ahead. We are now in Week 3 of the NFL season. Lines released last night on BETDAQ. Very interesting slate of games on tap for this weekend. Do want to talk about a couple of these games, a couple of these lines that have caught my eye. Now, as is the case with you, I'm sure I don't make any final decisions on these games until Friday or Saturday. But there are a couple of early things that I see that I just want to roll over in my head and maybe some thoughts that I'll share with you. I want to start with this Thursday night game. We do have a good Thursday night game on tap. The New York Giants going on the road to play the Carolina Panthers. Giants installed as a 1-point favorite right now on BETDAQ, 52 to the total in this game. And if that total feels a little high, it's because there should be some scoring in this game. The Giants pulled out a tough win, an unexpectedly tough win over Tampa this past weekend. Giants now at 1-1 on the year. And that Giants offense finally appeared to awaken against Tampa Bay. Eli Manning throwing for 510 yards. That's the 8th highest total in NFL history. So Manning was able to overcome 3 first-half interceptions to lead the Giants to that 41-34 victory. The Giants offense, we know what they have there, and they appear to have turned back into themselves, or at least the Giants offense we saw in the postseason last year in the Super Bowl. They appear to be that offense again this past week against Tampa. But the Giants defense, which played poorly throughout most of last season. They did pick it up once playoffs rolled around, but in the second half of their opening game against Dallas, and really this entire last game against Tampa Bay, boy, that Giants defense did not look very good. Some serious questions right now I have about this Giants defense. And the Carolina Panthers offense, they can score. They put up points, they score. Now, I said it last week, I said it on our live stream on Sunday, and I believe it. Cam Newton, the Carolina quarterback, the guy is just not a winning quarterback at this point in his career. Carolina lost 10 games last year. They lost in Week 1 against Tampa. They did pull out a good home win against New Orleans last week. But part of the reason for their losing and losses and continued losing, now part of the reason it has to do with the defense. It has been less than stellar, let's face it, over the last year or so. But Cam Newton throws far too many interceptions. The guy just turns the ball over, throws the ball into coverage. 17 interceptions last season. That was top 5 in the NFL in terms of most interceptions, the top 5 list you don't want to be on. A big reason for the Panthers' 10 losses, 2 interceptions in their Week 1 loss to Tampa Bay. And if you watched that game last week, Carolina and New Orleans, he threw New Orleans the ball again. 3 interceptions bouncing off the hands of Saints defenders. So, I know defensive backs are normally defensive backs because they can't catch the ball. That's why they don't play offense. But, disturbed with the amount that Cam Newton throws the ball into coverage. And I do believe that sort of the stats and the big plays and what Newton does and all the eye-opening plays he makes really covers up a lot of these things, and it makes, not just casual fans, but bettors, analysts, so-called experts, what they see a Carolina offense that's extremely explosive, that puts up points, and they really just sort of glaze over the fact that Carolina offense does some things that really kills them, really shoots themselves in the foot and makes it tough to win games. It's tough to win football games when you throw 2 interceptions. Now, I know the New York Giants did it last week, overcame 3 interceptions from Eli Manning, but by and large, when you see NFL teams, when you see quarterbacks that throw 2 interceptions a game, those teams usually lose those games. And so when I see the Giants, even though they've had struggles on defense, even though Carolina did just win at home as a short home dog, just like they are here. Carolina was also a 1-point underdog last week against New Orleans, just like they are here against the New York Giants. Still, I'm not comfortable betting on Carolina and trusting them to beat a quality team. They don't have a very good defense, even though through 2 weeks their defense does appear to be a little improved over last year's unit, which you'd expect. Ron Rivera's second year as coach. Rivera, of course, a defensive guy, has a defensive background, longtime defensive coordinator in the league with Chicago and more recently San Diego before he came over to be the head coach at Carolina. So expected to see that defense make some strides, but still that offense, as good as it is at times, and I have no doubt they are going to put up some points, put up 20, 30 points on this New York Giants defense, but that offense is going to give the Giants the ball a couple of times, and the Giants, they have the type of offense, as we saw last week with Eli throwing for 510 yards. You don't need to be giving them any unnecessary opportunities. So I do have an early lean towards the New York Giants in that game. Now, full disclosure, I've bet against the Carolina Panthers the first 2 weeks of the season. I have nothing against the Carolina Panthers. I won on them the first week of the season, betting on Tampa Bay, lost last week betting against them with New Orleans. It's just that I feel, because of the reasons I've mentioned, because there's sort of so much hype around this Carolina team because of Cam Newton and because that offense showed some real explosiveness last year. A lot of people thinking Carolina might be a dark horse playoff team this year, and I just didn't see that. Didn't see that before the year. Still don't see that. Still think Carolina's getting a little too much respect in the betting marketplace. And the fact that they're only a 1-point dog to the New York Giants this week, I think is further proof of that. Again, I'm not sure yet if I'm going to have a play on that game. Do have an early lean towards the Giants. Another game I want to get to, another team that is getting too much respect in the betting marketplace, in my opinion, is the Washington Redskins. Now, I was all over the St. Louis Rams this past weekend, a home underdog. Rams did win for me, did win that game outright. They were a 3-point dog, so was happy to see that. If you had a Rams moneyline bet, that paid even a little better than my Rams bet taking the points. And again, Washington this week is a 4-point home favorite over the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati was a playoff team last year. Did not look very good in a Week 1 loss to Baltimore, but picked it up this last week in a win against Cleveland. I know Cleveland's Cleveland. The Cleveland Browns are not very good. Rookie quarterback Brandon Weeden had an atrocious first week. Now, he did play a little better last week against the Bengals here, but the Bengals had a comfortable lead in that game. Cleveland, I believe, ended up only losing by 7. Late touchdown made it closer than the game really was. Bengals are a solid team. You know, hey, they're not the best team in their division or close to it, but I do expect them to be around 500, maybe 9-7-ish the way they were last year. Meanwhile, Washington, a 5-11 team last year, do have a rookie quarterback now, Robert Griffin III, who's created a lot of buzz. I mean, a lot of reason, a big reason there's so much hype and good feelings and positivity around the Washington Redskins right now is because of Robert Griffin III. And hey, some of that is warranted, absolutely warranted. This is a team that, again, was 5-11 last year that marched on the road into New Orleans, a Saints team that had covered 12 out of their last 13 games at home, hung 40 points on that Saints team, and beat them. And so, obviously, if you're a Redskins fan, if you're a Redskins bettor, if you're an NFL analyst, I mean, you're going to look at that and you're going to say, whoa, maybe Washington is a little different this year. Well, just let me remind you. I reminded you before the game this past week, and we saw it again against the St. Louis Rams. They might be a little different. They're not that different. This team was 5-11 last year for a reason. Now, I understand they didn't have a terrible defense. Their defense was middling, ranked sort of middle of the league in every major statistical category. But, you know, the quarterback play they got last year, even though Rex Grossman has been the, butt of a joke throughout his career because of his turnover-prone ways, Rex Grossman had his best year of his career last year. Their quarterback play was not atrocious. That was not the reason they were 5-11. And Robert Griffin III, while I'm sure he's going to have a much better career than Rex Grossman, he is still a rookie quarterback. This is going to be his third start in the league. Cincinnati was a top 10 defense last year. They do have some personnel on that defense. Robert Griffin has played 2 bad defenses in New Orleans and St. Louis. He will see a better defense this week in Cincinnati. You know, Mike Shanahan has done a real nice job in that offense of calling things that Robert Griffin is comfortable with. You've seen a lot of screen passes, a lot of short sort of controlled routes, a lot of planned rollouts from Robert Griffin, a lot of design runs, which, it is what should be done. It's what should be done with a quarterback like Robert Griffin, with Cam Newton or Tim Tebow. Any quarterback who uses their legs as part of what they do, it's the coordinator's job or the head coach in Mike Shanahan's case, but certainly Kyle Shanahan, the offensive coordinator, also designed these plays. It's their job to put these guys in positions where they can succeed and make it comfortable for them. Similar to when Michael Vick first broke into the league, played very differently from how he plays now. That offense, when he was with the Atlanta Saints then, Jim Mora Jr. was the coach. Very conservative, run-first offense. Michael Vick wasn't asked to do too much throwing the ball, and it was a very successful formula. Falcons ended up making the NFC Championship game. So I like what Washington's doing with Robert Griffin III, but I do not think, it was laughable last week after they beat the Saints. You had people saying Robert Griffin III was already one of the best quarterbacks in the league. John Madden said that Robert Griffin III might be the best player in the NFL right now. It was making my ears bleed, the stupidity and the ignorance you hear from these people who have been around the game their whole life, follow the game closely. Now, obviously, these people work in the media, and so they try to say things that will generate attention, generate headlines. And we know that. We take that under consideration. But I feel like some of that generated all this false hype sort of around this Redskins team, which is what made them a road favorite. This team had no business being a road favorite. A 5-11 team with a rookie quarterback in his second career start was a road favorite last week against a team that, yeah, they were bad last year. The Rams 2-14 last year. Still, early road favorites in the NFL like that with rookie quarterbacks. Stay away. Hope you listened to me last week and back the St. Louis Rams. If not, hope you at least listen to me this week. And I'm not sure I'm going to back the Bengals in this game. I mean, Cincinnati has a young quarterback themselves. Was not impressed with the Bengals when I saw them week 1 against the Ravens. Still, Washington should not be favored by this many here. Washington a 4-point favorite over Cincinnati at home. A Bengals team that is just better overall than this Redskins team. If these teams played on a neutral field, Cincinnati should be a couple of point favorite. Do believe the Bengals have a better team than the Redskins. However, the Redskins, similar to the Carolina Panthers, a little bit overhyped right now. Another game, a team that was definitely not overhyped coming into the season and who has opened up some eyes through 2 weeks of the season, opening up my eyes, is the Arizona Cardinals. Nobody but nobody had the Cardinals at 2-0 at this point of the year. They pulled out a win in week 1, a home win against the Seahawks. That wasn't that surprising. Two teams that, middling teams, not many people expected anything out of the Cardinals or the Seahawks. So that game sort of could go either way, a lot of people thought. But when Arizona marched into New Orleans last week as a 13.5-point favorite and pulled out a win against the Patriots, no one saw that coming, myself included. A shocking result. I want to talk about this Arizona defense. This Arizona defense has been playing some football. Played really well week 1 against Seattle, but again, most of us chalk that up to, well, they're playing the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle's been terrible on offense for a couple of years. They have a rookie quarterback, Russell Wilson, who played like a rookie. But we see them going to New England and hold that Patriots offense to 18 points. That's something different entirely. Now, they're being visited by the Philadelphia Eagles this week. Arizona is a 4-point home underdog in this game. Philadelphia a 4-point home favorite. So people obviously not quite buying into the Arizona Cardinals, and people still thinking that the Philadelphia Eagles are a team worth backing, a team that is one of the best teams in the league. And full disclosure, heading into this season, I predicted Philadelphia to win the NFC East. So I was one of these people who bought into Philadelphia. I still think they're a good team, but I bought into them, thought that, last year's 8-8 record, when they were the self-proclaimed dream team, really liked how they got it rolling at the end of the year, won their last 4 games. Thought maybe they had overhyped themselves a little too early, and this year was going to be the year they were a Super Bowl contender. Through 2 weeks, though, haven't been that impressed with Philadelphia. Yeah, I know they're 2-0, pulled out 2 wins, 2 one-point wins over the Cleveland Browns and a win in a great game this past week over the Baltimore Ravens. And Philadelphia, it's funny, they've turned the ball over a whole lot these first 2 games. Vic, I believe, has thrown 7 interceptions or something already this year, 6 or 7. I mean, they've been turning it over. They've been able to overcome those turnovers. Listening to a couple of people on television talking about that, like, these turnovers and the fact they've still won is proof that Philadelphia is for real and this offense is explosive. And I'm just not sure I'm ready to take it there. I think those turnovers and the Eagles offense, what we've seen through 2 games, might be proof of that's what this Eagles offense is. They are sort of a turnover-prone unit. Michael Vick not that careful where he throws the ball. Now, again, similar to Carolina, this is a Philadelphia group that can put up a lot of points, as they've shown. Really moved up and down the field against a good Ravens defense. Aside from when they turned the ball over, they really only stopped themselves with those turnovers. As we mentioned, Arizona Cardinals have been playing some good defense through these first 2 weeks of the season. I don't necessarily think it's an automatic that Philadelphia just stops turning the ball over this weekend and then just goes out and beats Arizona by 2 touchdowns. Maybe this is who the Philadelphia Eagles are. Maybe they gain a lot of yards, turn the ball over a lot, and just be wary. Now, Arizona, I haven't fully bought into them. I'm not, I'm not sold on the Arizona Cardinals just after 2 weeks of the season. But be wary of a 4-point home underdog like Arizona in this situation. I've said before, frequently in the NFL, early in the season especially, when I say we fans, we bettors, we put far too much emphasis on what happened last year. And we take way too long. Sometimes it'll take us 6, 7, 8 weeks of a new season to finally accept that, hey, maybe this team, who we thought would be no good, is actually pretty good. And maybe this team, who's been good for a long time, and we keep on waiting for them to wake up and start winning games, maybe they're not any good. Remember, in the NFL, more than any other professional sport, due to the way the league is structured, the salary cap, etc., there's so much parity. Every year we see a worst to first team. These teams are very close. I mean, every year we see a team that is last place in their division go on to win their division, like the San Francisco 49ers last year, Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC West the year before that. So there will be a team like that this year. Who will that team be? Too early to tell, but the Arizona Cardinals are a team like that, where if Arizona wins a couple of more weeks, you'll still have people who probably aren't buying into them. Still have people who are waiting for the other shoe to drop or whatever. But just, I'm going to warn you, just don't let last year, what happened last year, just so color your evaluations this year. Look at the San Francisco 49ers last year. San Francisco had been a terrible team for years, and they had much of the same personnel. They did have a new coach, Jim Harbaugh, but still had Alex Smith at quarterback, Frank Gore, not much of the way in wide receivers. So a lot of people said, hey, we've seen this movie before. So when the Niners won their first couple of games of the year, like the Cardinals did this year, they were close, tight games. It wasn't like the Niners were coming out and blowing people out. A lot of people said, similar to what they're saying about the Arizona Cardinals now, well, we'll see. Well, it's going to end here eventually. You got off to a nice start, but as a result, first 10 games of last year, the 49ers were 9-0-1 against the spread. That's right. If you bet on the 49ers throughout the first 10 games last year, you would not have lost one single time, and you would have won 9 out of those 10 bets. So, listen, people are slow to come around. Odds makers are slow to come around. Betting public is slow to come around. And this is an example of that. When you see Philadelphia as a 4-point road favorite against Arizona, Philadelphia has not covered once this year. They were a 9-point favorite against Cleveland in week 1. They only won by 1. They ended up being a 2.5-point favorite against Baltimore last week. That game opened at 1, moved to 2.5, beat Baltimore by 1. Didn't cover against Baltimore. Now, I know almost covered. They beat the Baltimore Ravens, who are a good team. So, again, I'm not saying I picked Philadelphia to win the NFC East. I believe the Eagles are a good team, one of the better teams in the NFC, but I'm very careful about going and betting on them laying 4 points on the road against an Arizona Cardinals team who's 2-0, who the only reason me or you or anybody else expects the Cardinals not to win in this game is because of last year, because what we saw last year. Oh, we know Arizona. We know Kevin Cobb. We know what they're all about. It's about to end for them, right? Well, let me just say, be careful, because every year in the NFL we see teams that surprise us that it doesn't end for those teams. Maybe the Arizona Cardinals are that team this year. Arizona +4 at home could be a sneaky play. Now, I want to get now to the 3 best games of the weekend. To me, these are clearly the 3 best games of the weekend. 2 of these bets do not have odds yet on BETDAQ. Do expect those in the next day or so. Atlanta at San Diego. Line in this game has not yet been released on BETDAQ. San Diego is a 3-point favorite in Vegas. Do expect that line to be somewhat similar on BETDAQ. The Atlanta Falcons, after beating the Denver Broncos last night at home to go to 2-0, this Falcons team has been very impressive this year. Won on the road in week 1 against the Kansas City Chiefs, hung 40 on the Chiefs, and again beat the Denver Broncos last week. Their defense picking off Peyton Manning 3 times early in that game and just sort of held on in the second half to that win. But I do think Atlanta is in a tough spot this week. The San Diego Chargers have been, if you've listened to any of my video previews, anything I've done here on BETDAQ NFL, you may know that I do pick the Chargers to be a surprise team in the AFC, possibly your AFC champion. If you held my feet to the fire and picked 2 Super Bowl teams, not sure if I'd pick the Chargers, but I do think they're going to win the AFC West. A lot of people sleeping on this team after a mediocre 8-8 year last year. Remember, a couple of years ago, the Chargers were most people's pick to either win the AFC or be one of the teams contending for the AFC win. And I think, they still have a lot of that same personnel. And it's almost like after last year, a lot of people forgot about the Chargers. It's really been a couple of years in a row that the Chargers have disappointed a little bit, but a lot of people have forgotten about this team. Well, I haven't forgotten about this team. And through 2 weeks of the season, the Chargers have looked like the team I thought they were going to be. Now, they weren't overly impressive in their Week 1 win against the Oakland Raiders. They were really impressive last week in a home victory against the Tennessee Titans. Absolutely blew out the Titans. And they were without Antonio Gates, possibly their best offensive player aside from Phillip Rivers. Still without Ryan Matthews, their best running back. Expected to get both those guys back this week. So Atlanta, again, traveling across the country, playing on the road in San Diego. San Diego, a 3-point favorite in Vegas. I do expect that number to creep in that San Diego direction. 3.5, maybe 4. It'll be interesting to see what kind of line they put out there on BETDAQ. I'll tell you what, if that line somehow drops below 3, if people have enough faith in the Atlanta Falcons to back them, if enough people back them to where that line starts moving that Atlanta direction, I will jump on the San Diego Chargers here, because I believe people still might be sleeping on the Chargers just a little bit. And Atlanta, after a win in front of the football-watching world last night against Peyton Manning and company, people are real high on the Atlanta Falcons right now. And it's my belief in NFL betting and sports betting in general, when everybody is buying, it might be time for you to sell. It might be time for you to sell the Atlanta Falcons right now, at least for this week. Another game, maybe the best game of the weekend, Houston Texans going on the road to play those Denver Broncos we were just talking about. Peyton Manning and company now 1-1, beating the Pittsburgh Steelers in Week 1 and losing to Atlanta, as we said last night. Now, the Houston Texans, has there been any team that's looked better than the Houston Texans thus far this NFL season? I don't think there has. Now, full disclosure, the Texans have beaten 2 teams that may be the 2 worst teams in the NFL. The Miami Dolphins, well, I shouldn't say that about Miami. Miami just beat Oakland this last week, but Miami's expected to be bad, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Houston's beaten Miami and Jacksonville. Haven't done really anything yet, but the way they beat those teams should be noted. Dominated Miami in Week 1, a Miami team that then went out and beat the Oakland Raiders in Week 2. And last year, I'm not even sure dominate fully encapsulates what they did to the Jacksonville Jaguars, holding the Jags to 117 total yards of offense, 52 yards passing. It's unbelievable. The Jags, in the franchise's history, had never experienced that kind of futility, never only gained 117 yards in a game on offense, even though they were the worst offense in the league last year. So Houston just thoroughly dominating that game, ran the ball right down their throats, didn't even need to use Andre Johnson, maybe the best wide receiver in the league, only threw him the ball a couple of times. That's because they rushed for over 200 yards on this Jaguars team. And just the defense, the Houston Texans defense, which ranked second in the league last year in total defense, just suffocated the Jags as they did the Dolphins in Week 1. So Houston could be the best team in the AFC. This is a team that really had not done anything ever in the franchise history, picking up the franchise's first playoff win last year with a rookie quarterback, TJ Yates. They're now back healthy on offense. Matt Schaub's back in there. Andre Johnson's back healthy. Still, that defense looked just as good, even though they lost Mario Williams and D'Amico Ryans in the offseason. This defense has looked just like the unit that finished second in the league last year in total defense. Going on the road in Denver, again, BETDAQ has not yet released a line for this game. In Vegas, this game opened as Denver -1 last night. I mean, this game didn't open until that game was finished last night. Within about 8 hours, this line moved from Denver -1 to Houston -1. So a lot of people out there, the type of people who put big money on these lines as soon as they're released, think the Houston Texans, even going out on the road, even playing better competition than they've played thus far, I think the feeling here is Houston might just be better than the Denver Broncos, period. Denver appears to have made strides on defense, but last night, after Manning looked like himself in Week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, didn't like some things, I saw last night. I wasn't alone. I mean, if you watch that game, you saw what I saw. Some of those passes fluttering up there in the air seemed to just stay in the air for an extra second or two. Didn't seem to have that zip. Manning might have lost some arm strength. Not sure he can push the ball downfield the way he used to. Not sure if he made some good throws. I mean, the guy's accuracy is still there, but I'll tell you what, the Falcons played a different type of defense last night than the Steelers did. They really crowded the line of scrimmage, dared Manning to beat him downfield. He was not able to do that. Expect to see more defenses, starting with the Houston Texans this week, employ that type of defense, really crowd those Denver receivers, really bring pressure to Peyton Manning, force him to make a lot of throws that maybe he's not comfortable making at this point in his recovery. Remember, he's 36 years old, been out of football for a year and a half, 3 neck surgeries. So it remains to be seen with Peyton Manning. And we'll see. Wade Phillips done an excellent job coordinating that Texan defense ever since he came over. I'm sure he'll have a good plan for stopping this Denver Bronco offense. And when I see that line move in Vegas, that early line move, a 2-point line move in the matter of hours, Houston now a road favorite over the Denver Broncos, it tells me a lot of bettors out there think that maybe this Houston team is just better than Denver, period. Maybe Denver is what they are, and Houston, they are what they are too. And what Houston is, that might be the best team in the AFC. Now, one more game I want to get to, a gem of a game, the Sunday night primetime game, a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game, the New England Patriots going on the road to play the Baltimore Ravens. Both these teams coming off of disappointing losses this past week. Baltimore really blew that game against the Philadelphia Eagles. Ravens had a 10-point halftime lead. And then, inexplicably, the Ravens, I know Joe Flacco has looked better. He looked better this year. He's looked better this year. He looked better towards the last half of last season. Still, the Ravens are one of these teams, sometimes they seem to forget who they are on offense. This team has the best running back in the league in Ray Rice, the best running back in the league. Heading into the game last week, the Ravens were 13-0 in their last 13 games in which Ray Rice had touched the ball 20 times or more. Touched the ball, receptions and rushes combined. However, last week against the Eagles, despite being up 10 points at half, Ray Rice had 9 carries, I believe, in the second half, and Joe Flacco threw the ball something like 27 times or 20-some-odd times in the second half, even though they had that lead. Just does not make any sense. They need to feature their best player. And even though Flacco might be turning into one of their better players, he may no longer be a liability. he is not as good as Ray Rice. You know, you must run this offense through Ray Rice, feed Ray Rice. Do not live and die on Joe Flacco and what is still a receiving core that is only average. I mean, I know the Ravens receiving core now is better than they were a couple of years ago, but you know, this passing game should be used to complement Ray Rice in that running game, not the other way around. Now, Baltimore is a 3-point favorite in this game. They do host the New England Patriots, as I said. 3-point favorite right now on BETDAQ. New England, a disappointing home loss last week to the Arizona Cardinals. More disappointing, tight end Aaron Hernandez hurt himself out for 6 to 8 weeks. Hernandez has been a big part of that offense, that two tight end set they love to use with Gronkowski and Hernandez. Because of that, word today, just in the last couple hours, broke that New England has signed Kellen Winslow, who, well, he has proven throughout his career to be a useful receiving tight end. You know, Kellen Winslow has an extremely high opinion of himself. You know, who sees, who knows what kind of effect he's going to have on that locker room. Greg Schiano, new Tampa Bay coach, he ran Winslow off that team despite Winslow leading the team in receptions this last year. So, you know, the Bucs, it's not like they have offensive weapons, just everywhere. So it says something about what Schiano felt like, what kind of player, what kind of teammate, what kind of person Kellen Winslow is, that he just cut him loose, and that Winslow had not been picked up by another NFL team, despite he caught like 72 balls, 76 balls, something like that last year. Still, no other NFL team had picked him up till the Patriots. They have now picked up Kellen Winslow. So we'll see if they instantly roll him out there and he becomes a part of that offense. Tell you what, after Hernandez went down last week, that offense appeared to be different. Maybe the credit goes to the Arizona Cardinals defense, but didn't appear to be that same New England offense we're accustomed to seeing. Now, Baltimore, they know that New England offense very well. They should have an excellent game plan for attacking this New England offense. That Baltimore defense, they looked really good in Week 1 against Cincinnati. Gave up a lot of yards last week against the Philadelphia Eagles in that 1-point loss. They did force some turnovers, but yeah, that Baltimore defense, we mentioned before the season, with Terrell Suggs now gone, who's developed into their best player because he's the only one of their big three, meaning Suggs, Ed Reed, Ray Lewis. The only one of those still in their physical prime is Suggs, but Suggs out for most of this year, if not all of this year, with that Achilles injury. Ray Lewis now 37, Ed Reed now 34. Now Reed especially has had a great first 2 weeks of the season. But is this Baltimore defense starting to slip? Not sure yet. It remains to be seen. It'll be an excellent litmus test this Sunday night as they host a New England Patriots team looking to rebound off of that disappointing home loss. As we said, Baltimore is an early 3-point favorite in this game. Now, these lines will change across as the week goes on. BETDAQ will be putting up different markets. We'll keep you up to date with that, of course. Totals markets will come up. We'll talk to you about that. And my feelings on some of these games are going to change, as I'm sure yours will. Now, if you haven't been to BETDAQ NFL, we urge you to check out the complete site. We do live stream every Sunday right here from the BETDAQ NFL War Room. So you can check that out. Get at me with your questions via Twitter at BETDAQ NFL, via the comment section. Anytime you want to reach me personally, John at BETDAQNFL.com. That is John at BETDAQNFL.com. I'll read all your emails. I'll get back to some of them if I can. We'll be releasing bettors previews for every one of these Week 3 games over the next couple of days. So we hope you enjoy the site. We hope you've had a couple of good weeks betting NFL football here, a couple of profitable weeks. And we hope, hey, it'll even get better and better for you as the season progresses. We're going to try to help you out here as much as we can, give you all the information we can for you to make an informed, objective decision on these games. Well, until next time, until tomorrow, I'm John Arnette for BETDAQ NFL.